Hello and welcome to yet another session of the NPTEL course titled 20th Century American Drama. So today we begin to look at the second act of the play Death of a Salesman, which we have been closely reading in the last few days. So in Act 2, we come to know that the play is reaching its culmination. Even at the beginning of Act 2, we do get that sense in the first couple of scenes itself. So it is this movement towards the final days of a dejected salesman. And in retrospect, we also know that, in this it is technically his final day as well. His final day in so many ways. It is the death at so many metaphorical levels. It's not just the death of a salesman. It's not just the death, the end of his career. It's the end of his life, and simultaneously it's the end of his identity as a father, as a husband, as a family man, something which he really aspired for as he was also building up his life gradually from his youth onwards. So we find that Willy Loman comes across as a person who's entirely destroyed by the social energies around him. So there are the personal failures, to which some of which he's completely in denial about, but there are also a lot of social energies which he finds unable to cope with, and they also begin to lead towards his destruction. So there has been a lot of debate about the notion of the American dream and its critique as it gets presented in this play, The Death of a Salesman, by Arthur Miller. So a number of criticisms have also come up in terms of wondering whether the play is actually presenting victims who nurtured false dreams of their nation. Because there are multiple ways in which you can begin to look at this play, whether Willy Loman could be seen as a prototype of an American individual, whether the Loman family could be seen as a prototype, as a typical American family. There are a lot of such questions which have been debated about. But Harold Bloom, one of the critiques of this play, he has also argued that this at some level presents the inevitable consequence of post-war capitalist competition in expanding economy. There's an inevitability about it, and what makes this more interesting is the fact that Willy Loman is among the very few in this system who are very sensitive, who also has certain private personal ambitions in terms of becoming the best father, becoming a good husband. So that also works to his disadvantage, because there is a certain fine blend that he aspires to reach by blending his own dreams into the dreams of the nation, and that's where the insecurity, and that is where the failure and disillusionment and all of these things begin to collectively happen. So Willy has an almost tormenting yearning to be popular, to be loved. There's a Shakespearean quality about it, and this torment, this yearning to be loved, becomes a central flaw as well. That is the most definite aspect about his character, which he strongly believes in. He also tries to teach his sons accordingly, to raise his sons accordingly, and that becomes a central flaw around which the family collapses. As an individual, as a family man, as a salesman, he just collapses without any support, and the helplessness becomes almost tangible in the play from the beginning of the Act 2 onwards. So now Arthur Miller himself has commented this about Willy Loman and the likes of him, that these people were profound believers in the American dream. The day the money stopped, their identity was gone. So we find that a lot of things come together in the making of this identity, the identity of the salesman, a person like Willy Loman, but the same set of things also come together in his undoing. So the dreams that he has, the memories that he has about Uncle Ben, about what he could have become, there is a certain materiality about it. There's a certain materialistic quality about it, because the corporate culture, the American dream was also about making it big in a material sense. Success was measured in very tangible terms, and it is that tangible quality that leads to the downfall of Willy Loman and his family too. When they are unable to get such tangible outcomes from the dream that they are pursuing, they begin to fall apart. And what comes across is very ironic is that in certain other aspects, Willy Loman and his family, they they seem to be quite blessed in terms of the togetherness that they have as a family. There is a certain support system that they have among each other, but they fail to recognize it, they fail to acknowledge it. And in this pursuit of these tangible dreams and tangible material comforts, and by equating success to a lot of things that are part of the nation's big competitive capitalist dream, they lose sight of what they have as a family, as individuals, and they lose sight of the little acts of kindness and the little acts of accommodation that they have among them. So when the scene one begins, scene one of Act 1 begins, there it seems for some time at the beginning of the scene that things are beginning to come back to normal. If you recall, at the end of the final scene in Act 1, there was some kind of a peace and order which was momentarily restored. We also get a sense that it is very temporary. There is a momentary movement, a temporary movement towards a very calming, orderly family life, but that does not last for long either. So in the morning, the next day morning, when Act 1, Scene 1 begins, there is a superficial kind of peace and sense of order. Yeah, and if you look at the language which is used in Scene 1 in Act 2, it is also telling of the kind of mood which is there when the play begins. But we get to know that it's very, very temporary quite shortly. So Willie is looking very rested, and he's also saying that he slept like a dead one. First time in months. Imagine sleeping till 10 on a Tuesday morning. Boys left nice and early, huh? Yeah. So this looks like a normal family, yeah, and they are having breakfast and having conversations about their sons who just left home for work. And the vocabulary being used over here is also very promising, very positive and very bright. Yeah, so they are talking about, as a family, a husband and wife, they are talking about their children. They are very hopeful about what the kids are about to do, and Bill also looked hopeful. Linda is informing Willie, and they do exchange, and there's a very fine exchange over here, like a normal family, and they are trying to be happy together too. And again, Linda is always, she overdoes it too when she's beginning to praise the children, and they are both talking about how handsome Biff looked in the suit that he was wearing. And it looks very promising and very bright in that morning, a Tuesday morning, we are told. But very soon we realize that the ordinariness, the daily daily nitty-gritties, they catch up to it. They catch up to them. And they are soon caught up in this a turbulent day where a lot of discussion about the insurance premium, the car, the fridge. Yeah? So those sort of things begin to the mention of those material comforts or the lack of them, or things going wrong. They soon almost completely swallow the seemingly normal mood which was there, the seemingly promising mood which was there at the outset. And Willie very soon, gets back into his earlier mode where he begins to complain a lot, where he begins to lament a lot. And Linda is again back to her own self, trying to pull things together, trying to bring about reconciliation, and being this very compassionate and very reassuring figure. She almost begins to come across as very unreal when she's constantly in this mode of trying to make peace, where she rarely loses her cool, unless they're the only couple of places where she loses her cool when she's worried about her Willie. So there is this almost unending compassion and kindness and understanding that she seems to be having towards Willie as well as both sons. A bit further into the play, the moment Willie notices that Linda is again mending stockings, he begins to feel nervous, and he spells it out too, and he warns her to stop doing that. Will you stop mending stockings, at least while I'm in the house? It gets me nervous. I can't tell you, please. Linda hides the stocking in her hand as she follows Willie across the fourth stage in front of the house. In one of the earlier acts, in one of the earlier scenes, we noticed that she immediately hid the stockings into her pocket. So the sight of it triggers a lot of unpleasant memories for Willie, and he does not want to be associated with those memories. Much as the woman was an escape into a fantasy world for him, he does not want to be associated with the a woman, or he does not want to be associated with those kinds of memories which would foreground his infidelity. That makes him a lesser man in his own eyes. Towards the end of this scene, we realize that Linda continues to be in this sense of denial. So in the previous scene, when Act 1 ended, we realized that the family discusses the suicidal tendencies that Willy Loman has, and Biff had removed that rubber hose which Linda feared that he would be using, Willy Loman will be using to kill himself. Linda of course knew that Biff was the one who had removed it, but in this scene, towards the end of scene 1, she begins to act in complete denial, just the way she does most of the times. If you look at this very brief excerpt, this is Linda talking to Biff over phone. Yes, hello Biff, I just told him, yes, he'll be there for dinner at 6 o'clock. I didn't forget. Listen, I was just dying to tell you. You know that little rubber pipe I told you about that he connected to the gas heater? I finally decided to go down the cellar this morning and take it away and destroy it. But it's gone. Imagine he took it away himself. It isn't there. She listens. When? Oh, then you took it. Oh, nothing. It's just that I'd hoped he'd taken it away himself. So she's living in this complete denial, hoping that he will come back, he will recover from this mental deterioration that he's been suffering for some time now. Oh, I'm not worried, darling, because this morning he left in such high spirits. It was like the old days. So she is willingly forgetting the second half of the conversation that Willy Loman and Linda had, where Willy was again beginning to deteriorate, because that is their, these concerns and this sense of insecurity, the sense of failure, this disillusionment, and his bad temperament. It's always there, but Linda chooses to ignore it, and chooses to see only the bright side of things, which is not entirely, which does not entirely work to the advantage of the family either. I'm not worried because this morning he left in such high spirit. It was like the old days. I'm not afraid anymore. And soon after that, there are these moments, there are these tiny moments, these tiny pockets when she also realizes that he is a man who needs help. So in her own words, he is only a little boat looking for a harbor. So they all realize the helplessness into which Willy Loman is falling steadily, but very, very slowly, but very, very steadily. And they are waiting for each other to rise up to the occasion and help him, but no one really knows, because half of the time, more than half, most of the time, they are all in this denial. And there are these very few fine moments when they come up together as a family who are not in denial, and the conflict and the pressure of it becomes a bit too much for them to handle, and then again they slip back into those comforting moments of denials. So from here we move on to this in the second scene. It is in the office, and the movement is quite swift, and this is one of the most important scenes in this play, where we find that Willy almost we find that this is a scene which marks the beginning of Willy's world beginning to crash, and this crash begins to happen in very visible terms from his office and many other things, most of the things that so far that the reader and the audience were aware of just through Willy's recollections, we are now witnessing it. So this is this exchange between Willy and Howard, and we realize that it's not a conversation which is going well, and Willy is about to lose his job, but Willy is also trying to buy time by bringing up very happy memories and hoping that he will be able to persuade Howard into letting him keep his job. But we realize that none of these things work, because they seem to be inhabiting two different worlds altogether. Their sense of logic, their value system, everything seems to be entirely different. So when Willy is trying to convince him in very emotional ways by confessing that he's actually very tired, speaking frankly, and between the two of us, I'm just a little tired. Oh, I could understand that, Willy, but you're a road man, Willy, and we do a road business. We've only got a half dozen salesmen on the floor here. So on the one hand, we find that Willie is trying to become very emotional over here, trying to get into a confessional mode and trying to share things very honestly, but it's almost like talking to a machine. Howard comes across as this very, very efficient man who's running this perfect system, and he cannot accommodate a person like Willie. And it's not that he lacks empathy, but it's not the kind of empathy that Willie needs at this point of time. His empathy works in a more professional sense. Howard's empathy works in a more professional sense. It's also about being able to sustain his company for larger interests. And this is language. This is an emotion that Willie cannot comprehend, and he tries to bring in the past over here at various points of time by talking about Howard's father, talking about his own father, his own family, and reminding Howard that he was just a baby when Willie started working for his father. But we find that Howard sticks to his gun, and he seems almost stubborn in his decision to get rid of Willie. And Howard is trying to be, there's a superficial nicety in this exchange, but that does not really help Willie in any way. Howard says, "There's just no spot here for you. If I had a spot, I'd slam you right in, but I just don't have a single solitary spot." So while Willie seems to be using an emotional language, he seems to be relying on the past, on memory, on fine human emotions and relationships. Howard works in a very technical way. Howard talks about business, and Howard spells it out too. Just when, if we could read through this exchange, Willie begins to say, "Just let me tell you a story, Howard." And Howard interrupts, because you've got to admit, business is business. And at this point, Willie almost loses his temper too. Business is definitely business, but just listen for a minute. You don't understand this. When I was a boy, 18, 19, I was already on the road. And there was a question in my mind as to whether selling had a future for me. Because in those days, I had a yearning to go to Alaska. See, there were 3 gold strikes in 1 month in Alaska, and I felt like going out just for the ride, you might say. And Howard is not even interested in these stories from the past that Willie begins to share. And now Willie steps back a bit, and this is not his usual reverie. This is not when memory begins to overlap with his present. He's consciously trying to remember a past, consciously trying to recall certain episodes, which he hopes will also help in saving his job. And this is how he goes. "Oh yeah, my father lived many years in Alaska. He was an adventurous man. We've got quite a little streak of self-reliance in our family. I thought I'd go out with my older brother and try to locate him and maybe settle in the north with the old man. And I was almost decided to go when I met a salesman in the Parker House." He's giving a history of how he became a salesman, how he decided not to go out in search of his father. This absent father figure is also one of the reasons why perhaps he feels insecure, why Willie feels insecure and like a failure all the time. "I was almost decided to go when I met a salesman in the Parker House. His name was Dave Singleman, and he was 84 years old, and he drummed merchandise in 31 states. And old Dave, he'd go up to his room and put on his green velvet slippers. I'll never forget, pick up his phone and call the buyers, and without ever leaving his room, at the age of 84, he made his living. And when I saw that, he realized that selling was the greatest career a man could want." Yeah, because what could be more satisfying than to be able to, at the age of 84, into 20 or 30 different cities, and pick up a phone and be remembered and loved and helped by so many different people. So this is what catches his attention. So we are getting into the heart of this matter now. So now we get to hear this from Willie's own words. So this is precisely what drew him to this job, to the job of a salesman, to be remembered, to be loved, and to be helped by so many different people. So like we mentioned in the beginning of this session, there is this almost tormenting quality about this yearning for being loved, this yearning for acceptance, and that is what precisely calls his downfall as well. When he gets very emotional while sharing this story, this backstory about how he became a salesman, and it also puts things into perspective for the reader. But Howard definitely, he does not have much time for this, and now Willie gets into it. His language changes entirely. Now he moves back from that nostalgic mode and from that storytelling mode into just asking what he needs. He just puts it all out there, saying all that he needs is $40 a week. It's just a matter of sustenance. It's just a matter of practicality, about having some money to get by. And Howard is quite stubborn, and he cannot be moved by any of these things that Willie is sharing with him. Neither the past nor the contemporary pleas for sustenance. Nothing moves him. So Willie is also, again tries a bit, and perhaps it also comes very naturally to him, and he is now thinking about how he was treated by Howard's father. And he does think about, he's almost aggressive over here, and it's a kind of tone that he otherwise he does not take in his office. And here he's beginning to share this with Howard about his father. I'm talking about your father. There were promises made across this desk. He's also drawing upon the past to talk about certain kinds of promises, to talk about a legacy. There were promises made across this desk. You mustn't tell me you've got people to see. I put 34 years into this firm, Howard, and now I can't pay my insurance. So this is the tragedy of this entire this entire situation, that he had invested 34 years into becoming a salesman. He'd invested 3 decades of his life for working towards for a company, 3 decades trying to become a good father, a good family man, and he seems to have reached a point where he can't take this disillusionment and failure anymore. You can't eat the orange and throw the peel away. A man is not a piece of fruit. Now pay attention. Your father, in 1928, I had a big year. I averaged $170 a week in commissions, and even these details, even money, does not force Howard to pay attention to Willie, because Willie has made up his mind based on previous performances, and Howard has the mind of a very pragmatic businessman who needs to go ahead, who should not be swayed by this emotional talk, who should not be swayed by what a certain person had done for the company many years back, or that's not how he counts, that's not how he calculates success. So they seem to be in different pages altogether. So what's more ironical over here is that Howard's model of doing business is something that even Willie would look up to, just that it's not working to his advantage. And this is the kind of American dream that he wants to pursue, where there is no past, where there is no legacy, and there is nothing from the past that should pull you back. It's just about living in the moment and making the most of it. So that's where the two ironical sides of this dream begins to, this notion of the American dream begins to work as a dilemma, they're posing conflicts to each other. So all of these characters, they all have this immense faith in this system, in the notion of the American dream. It's just that, when things do not work to their advantage, they seem to be losing faith, not just in the system, even in themselves as individuals. So that is perhaps the critique, the socio-historical critique that this play is also trying to showcase, that the failure of a system and the failure of not becoming a success in a certain system begins to affect not just the career, but also relationships and even one's own judgment of one's personal worth itself. So Willie soon realizes that he's been yelling at his boss, and he soon tries to pull himself up, and he even offers to go to Boston for work. This is when the world entirely comes crashing down before Willie. In this scene, we get to know that Howard tells this very clearly to Willie, that the company does not want Willie to represent them in Boston or anywhere. So this is where this is a very long conversation. At the end of it, we realize that Howard is firing Willie, and it begins to sink in even for Willie much later on. I don't want you to represent us. I've been meaning to tell you for a long time now. So it's not a decision that he took overnight. This has been in his mind for some time. Things have been brewing. Howard, are you firing me? I think you need a good long rest, Willie. And when you feel better, come back and we'll see if we can work something out. But I got to earn money, Howard. I'm in no position to. Where are your sons? Why don't your sons give you a hand? They're working on a very big deal. This is no time for false pride. So this is where Howard also calls a spade a spade. Yeah, this is about false pride. This is about living in denial. And Howard has no qualms in spelling this out to Willie. You go tell your sons and tell them that you're tired. You've got 2 great boys, haven't you? Oh, no question. But in the meantime, then that's that. So he's in this mood to bring this conversation to an end. And look at the statement. He says, I can't throw myself on my sons. I'm not a cripple. So asking for help in his mind is something which is very, very demeaning, and certainly not to one's own children. For him, he's this father figure that his children should look up to. He cannot be going to his children asking for help. And even when he is thinking about his past memories, it is always in such ways that none of these memories hurt his ego. None of those memories hurt his pride. And he willfully, he recollects only those episodes from his life, only those memories from his life, which will give him a feel-good factor. And for him, asking for help even from his sons is like seeing himself as a cripple. From this, there is a switch to the past again. We find that Ben again makes an appearance. This is largely in his recollection. This is largely manufactured in Willie's memory, and we will find this time switch operating in very beautiful and subtle ways over here right after Willie faces maybe one of the biggest challenges in his life, where he is almost fired from his job, where he realizes that his career as a salesman, his identity as a salesman has come to an end, and nothing the past memories, nor the invocation of the present value system, nothing really comes to his aid. And this is the utter helplessness now that he finds himself in, and the only repose that he has at this point is to again fall back into his memories, where from where he hopes to get something to stay anchored and to stay connected with. So with this, we bring this session to an end, and we will continue to look at the play and examine the following acts in the coming sessions. I thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.